man certified to touch the 11,000-volt line powering Shane Coleman's $18 million factory. But when I asked for a mandatory safety inspection, Shane fired me on the spot, calling me a cheap Sparky and replacing me with his unlicensed nephew. I didn't argue. I just packed my tools, walked away, and watched the clock ticking down to the moment the lights went out for good. My name is Wade Morrison, and I'm 51 years old. I've been working high-voltage electrical systems for 28 years, ever since I got out of the Navy. There's a specific sound that 10,000 volts makes when it's contained within a transformer the size of a shipping container. It isn't a buzz, it's a hum, a low-frequency vibration that you feel in your teeth before you hear it with your ears. To most people, it sounds like power. To me, it sounds like a sleeping dragon waiting for an excuse to wake up. I checked my watch. It was 6 a.m. The sun hadn't even crested the horizon yet, but I was already 60 feet up in the bucket lift, hovering over the main substation for the Tanaka manufacturing plant. The air was crisp, smelling faintly of ozone and wet gravel. "Wade, how's the temperature looking on Phase B?" Rex Hudson's voice crackled through my radio headset. Rex had been my partner for 15 years, solid as they come. I looked at the thermal imaging camera mounted on my rig. The screen showed a gradient of blues and greens with a hot spot of angry red pulsing right at the connection point. "She's running hot, Rex," I replied, keeping my voice steady, 70 degrees above ambient. "We're pushing the thermal limits on these bushings. If we don't schedule a shutdown for maintenance within the week, we're going to have a catastrophic failure." "Copy that, Wade," Rex said, sounding tired. "You know, Shane isn't going to like hearing the word shutdown. We're 3 weeks behind on the expansion project as it is." "Shane can like it or lump it," I muttered, adjusting my insulated gloves. They were Class 4 rubber, thick and clumsy, but they were the only thing standing between me and instant vaporization. Physics doesn't care about his production schedule. I spent the next hour documenting the wear and tear. I'd been a high-voltage technician for 28 years, and before that I learned discipline and attention to detail in the Navy. I knew these grids better than I knew the back of my own hand. This specific setup was complex. It wasn't just providing lights for an office. It was powering massive induction furnaces for a specialized metal refinery. If the power dipped for even a second, the molten metal in the vats would begin to cool and solidify, ruining millions of dollars of inventory and destroying the equipment permanently. I was the only one on this site certified to touch the high side of the transformer. That certification wasn't just a piece of paper. It was thousands of hours of training and a license that cost more to maintain than most people's cars. I lowered the bucket and landed on the gravel lot with a crunch. I began stripping off my harness, my movements methodical. Every clip, every carabiner was checked and stowed. You don't get old in this job by being sloppy. I saw a black luxury SUV tear into the muddy construction lot, swerving around a stack of conduit pipes. It parked aggressively next to the job trailer, taking up 2 spots. Shane Coleman stepped out. The thing is, he was wearing a navy blue suit that cost more than my first house, and his Italian leather shoes were already getting ruined by the site mud. He didn't look like a general contractor. He looked like a hedge fund manager playing dress-up. He slammed the door and marched toward me, pointing a manicured finger. "Morrison," he shouted. "Why is the bucket down? We have conduit to run on the north wall." I wiped a smudge of grease from my cheek. "Morning to you too, Shane." "The bucket is down because I was inspecting the main feed. We have a problem." Shane stopped 3 feet from me, wrinkling his nose as if the smell of hard work offended him. He was a man who had inherited his father's construction firm and had spent the last 5 years expanding it rapidly, cutting corners wherever he could to underbid the competition. "I don't pay you to find problems, Wade," Shane sneered. "I pay you to keep the juice flowing. Mr. Tanaka is flying in next month for the grand opening of the new wing. I need those furnaces online and testing by Friday." I picked up my thermal camera and held the screen up for him to see. "Look at this heat signature on the B-phase bushing. It's failing. The insulation is breaking down. If we run full load on Friday without replacing that connector, it will blow." Shane waved his hand dismissively. "It's a piece of metal, Wade. It's fine. Just tighten it or put some tape on it. Whatever you Sparkies do." My jaw tightened. "Put tape on it? We're talking about transmission level voltage, Shane. If that bushing fails, it won't just pop a breaker, it will explode. It could take out the whole substation. I need to order a replacement part, and we need a 12-hour shutdown to install it safely." 12 hours. Shane's face turned a shade of red that matched the thermal image. "Are you insane? A 12-hour shutdown costs me $35,000 in penalties. Absolutely not. It's either a scheduled shutdown now or an unscheduled explosion later, I said, keeping my voice calm. It was a tone I used when training apprentices in the Navy. Firm, factual, unyielding. I'm not signing off on the safety permit for the new wing until that maintenance is done. My license is on the line. Shane laughed, a sharp barking sound. He looked around the site to make sure his crew was watching. He loved an audience. Your license? He mocked. You think you're special because you have a fancy card in your wallet. You're just a glorified electrician, Wade. You pull wire and flip switches. Don't act like you're a structural engineer. I'm a high-voltage technician, I corrected him. And I'm telling you, under OSHA Regulation 1910-26-9, that equipment is unsafe. If you force the crew to work near it under load, I'm shutting down the site myself. The silence that followed was heavy. Rex, standing by the tool crib, looked down at his boots. He knew I was right, but he also knew Shane held the paychecks. Shane took a step closer, invading my personal space. I smelled expensive cologne, masking the scent of stale coffee. You don't shut down anything on my site, Morrison, Shane hissed. I run this show. I own the contract. You work for me. Now, are you going to get back up in that bucket and sign off on the permit, or do we have a problem? I looked him in the eye. I won't sign a death warrant, Shane. Fix the bushing. Shane stared at me for a long moment, his eyes darting to the younger guys watching from the scaffolding. He couldn't handle being told no in front of his employees. His ego was the only thing bigger than the transformer behind me. You know what your problem is, Wade? Shane said, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. You're old, you're slow, and you're too expensive. You think you're irreplaceable because you've been doing this since the Stone Age? Experience costs money, I said simply. Safety costs money. Sparkies are cheap. Shane shouted, throwing his hands up. I can find a dozen guys who can climb a pole and turn a wrench for half of what I pay you. I'm tired of your lectures and your safety holds. I need people who want to work, not people who want to find excuses. He turned toward the trailer and whistled. Clay. Get out here. The trailer door opened and Clay Coleman, Shane's 24-year-old nephew, jogged out. Clay was a nice enough kid, but he was green. He had failed his journeyman exam twice and had 0 high-voltage certifications. He was wearing a brand-new hard hat that didn't have a single scratch on it. Yeah, Uncle Shane, Clay asked, looking confused. Shane pointed at me, then at the transformer. Wade is leaving. You're taking over the electrical lead. I felt a cold pit form in my stomach. Not for me, but for the factory. Shane, you can't be serious. Clay isn't certified for anything over 600 volts. This is a 110,000 volt system. If he touches the wrong thing, he dies. He's smart. He'll figure it out, Shane scoffed. It's just wires, Wade. Red to red, black to black. Clay grabbed the keys to the bucket truck from Mr. Morrison. Clay looked terrified. He looked at the massive humming transformer, then at me. Uncle Shane, Wade usually handles the high side. I don't really know the switching sequence. Shut up and take the keys. Shane snapped. He turned back to me, a smug grin plastered on his face. You're fired, Wade. Get your gear and get off my site. I'm docking your final pay for the delay you caused this morning. I looked at the keys in my hand. I looked at the failing transformer, humming its dangerous tune. And then I looked at Shane. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I didn't warn him again. I had given my professional opinion, and it had been rejected. Okay, I said. I dropped the keys into Clay's trembling hand. Good luck, kid, I said to Clay. Don't touch the bushings and wear your rubber. I walked over to the tool crib and started packing my personal specialized gear. My hot sticks, my meters, my climbing belt. Those were mine. Where do you think you're going with those? Shane barked. Company property stays. Read my contract. Shane, I said, snapping the latches on my heavy-duty case. I provide my own calibrated tools. You provide the headache. I'm taking the tools. I hefted the case onto my shoulder. It weighed 60 pounds, but it felt light compared to the weight of responsibility I was leaving behind. I walked past Shane without looking at him. You'll regret walking away. Shane yelled after me. You'll never work in this town again. I'll make sure of it. I reached my truck, threw my gear in the back, and started the engine. As I drove out of the muddy lot, I looked in the rearview mirror and saw Shane patting Clay on the back, pointing up at the deadly equipment. I checked the time. 7:15 a.m. The heat on that bushing would continue to rise with the morning load. I gave it 4 weeks, maybe 5. I was wrong. It didn't even take that long. The drive home was quiet, too quiet. Usually my mornings were filled with the chatter of the site radio, the ringing of supplier calls, and the mental checklist of 100 different load calculations. Now there was just the hum of my tires on the asphalt and the low murmur of the news radio. I pulled into a diner about 5 miles from the site, a place where the coffee tasted like battery acid, but the eggs were fresh. I needed a moment to decompress before I faced the reality of being unemployed at 51. I sat in a booth by the window, watching the rush hour traffic. My phone buzzed on the table. It was Rex. I debated ignoring it, but Rex was a good man. He was just caught in the middle. I slid the green icon. "Tell me he didn't make Clay climb the structure," I said. Skipping the hello, he didn't. Rex whispered. The background noise was loud, grinders and heavy machinery. "But it's worse, Wade. Shane ordered us to bypass the thermal overload relays on the main breaker. He said they were nuisance tripping and slowing down the testing phase." I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. "He what?" "Rex, those relays are there to prevent the transformer from melting down. If you bypass them, you're flying blind. The system won't know it's overheating until it's on fire." "I know, Wade. I know." Rex sounded panicked, but he's threatening to fire the whole crew. He brought in some guys from a temp agency to pull the rest of the cable. They don't even have steel-toed boots, let alone certifications. It's a circus down here. "Document everything, Rex," I advised, my voice low. "Take pictures, send emails confirming his verbal orders. Cover your backside, because when that thing goes, insurance is going to look for a scapegoat, and Shane will make sure it's not him." "I miss you already, boss," Rex said. Clay is walking around with a clipboard trying to look important, but he asked me if AC current has a positive and negative. "We're doomed." I hung up and stared at my coffee. Bypassing safety relays wasn't just negligence, it was criminal. Shane was gambling with $18 million of Mr. Tanaka's money and the lives of his workers just to save a few grand on a shutdown. I felt a strange mix of anger and grim satisfaction. I had built that power grid. I knew its tolerances. Shane thought he had fired an employee, but he had actually just removed the only safety valve on a pressure cooker. 6 weeks went by. The silence from the industry was deafening. Usually, when a senior technician becomes available, the phone rings off the hook. There's a shortage of guys with my level of certification, but my phone sat on my workbench, silent as a stone. I spent the days in my garage restoring a 1967 Harley Davidson I'd owned for 20 years. It was therapeutic work, simple mechanics, tangible results. If a bolt was stripped, you replaced it. You didn't tape it up and hope for the best. On the 8th Tuesday, I decided to test the waters. I called an old contact at the Municipal Utility Board, a guy named Glenn Adams I'd known since we were both in the Navy. "Wade," Glenn said, his tone clipped. "I was wondering if you'd call. I'm looking for some contract work, Glenn. Got anything on the transmission upgrade downtown?" There was a long pause. "I can't hire you, Wade. Word is out. Shane Coleman sent a memo to the Regional Contractors Association. He's claiming you walked off the job mid-critical path and sabotaged the equipment before you left. He's calling it gross negligence." My blood ran cold. "Sabotage?" "I asked for a safety inspection, Glenn. He fired me for it. I believe you, Wade. But Shane has lawyers, and he's loud. Until this blows over, you're radioactive. Nobody wants to touch a guy who's being sued for project delays." "Sorry, Wade." The line went dead. I stood there in my garage, the smell of oil and sawdust in the air, feeling the walls close in. Shane wasn't satisfied with firing me. He wanted to destroy me. He wanted to make sure I couldn't earn a living so I wouldn't have the resources to fight him for wrongful termination. It was a bully tactic, standard operating procedure for guys like him. He thought I was just a blue-collar worker who would fold under the pressure, apologize, and beg for scraps. He forgot one thing. I had saved a life once, a long time ago, and that life had grown up to be a shark. I wiped the grease from my hands with a rag. I didn't need a job anymore. I needed a lawyer. Vance Palmer's office was on the 12th floor of a glass tower downtown, overlooking the city's industrial district. The waiting room smelled of money, leather, mahogany, and silence. I sat in my clean flannel shirt and work boots, looking out of place amidst the suits and briefcases. The receptionist, a young woman with severe glasses, looked at me skeptically over her monitor. "Mr. Palmer is in a high-priority deposition," she said for the 3rd time. "He really doesn't have time for walk-ins." "Just tell him Wade is here," I said patiently. "Tell him it's about the trench in 2004. She rolled her eyes but picked up the phone. She whispered something, paused, and then her face went pale. She hung up slowly, Go right in, sir. The double doors at the end. I walked down the hallway. The double doors flew open before I even reached them. Vance Palmer stood there, arms wide open. He was wearing a tailored charcoal suit that probably cost $5,000, but beneath the expensive fabric, I could still see the build of the scrawny kid who used to haul concrete bags for me. Wade, Vance boomed, grabbing my hand in a crushing grip. I haven't seen you in 5 years. You look exactly the same, still ugly. And you still look like a weasel in a suit, Vance. I smiled. He laughed and ushered me into his office, which was larger than my entire house. He poured 2 glasses of amber liquid from a crystal decanter. To the trench, he said, raising his glass. To the trench, I replied. 230 years ago, a shoring wall had collapsed on a muddy site. Vance, then a 19-year-old laborer, had been buried up to his neck. The fire department said it was too unstable to dig him out immediately. I didn't wait. I jumped in with a shovel and dug him out by hand while the mud groaned around us. I pulled him free 10 seconds before the secondary collapse filled the hole completely. He owed me his life. He had gone to law school at night, fueled by a hatred for unsafe work conditions, and had become the most feared labor attorney in the state. We sat down. Vance's demeanor shifted instantly from old friend to predator. He leaned forward, his eyes sharp. You didn't come here for the view, Wade. You look like a man who's been cornered. Who is it? Shane Coleman, I said. Vance let out a low whistle, the golden boy. I've been wanting to take a bite out of him for years. What did he do? I told him everything. The failing transformer, the refusal to shut down, the firing, the nephew, and the blacklisting. Vance listened without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, he didn't look angry. He looked delighted. He accused you of sabotage in writing, Vance asked. Memo to the Contractors Association, I confirmed. Vance smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a wolf looking at a limping deer. Wade, my friend, Vance said, tapping his pen on the desk, Shane Coleman just made the biggest mistake of his life. He didn't just fire you. He defamed you while committing gross negligence on an $18 million contract. We aren't just going to get your job back. We're going to take his company apart, brick by brick. He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city skyline. But first, Vance said, turning back to me, we wait. We need him to hang himself completely. You said the transformer is failing. It's running 70 degrees over ambient. It won't last another week, I said. Good, Vance said coldly. Let it burn. Vance's strategy was simple. Aggressive silence. We filed nothing. We sent no letters. We let Shane believe he had successfully crushed me. In the construction world, silence is usually interpreted as defeat. Shane, arrogant as he was, would see my lack of response as submission. Meanwhile, I kept tabs on the site through Rex. We met at a dive bar 2 towns over, huddled in a back booth like conspirators. It's a nightmare, Wade, Rex said, nursing a beer. He looked exhausted. Dark circles rimmed his eyes, and his hands had a slight tremor. Clay is running the crew into the ground. He has them pulling wire 18 hours a day to make up the schedule. No overtime pay, just promises of bonuses when the job is done. What about the transformer? I asked, cutting to the chase. It's screaming, Rex said. You can hear it from the parking lot now. A loud, angry buzzing. The temp agency guys are terrified of it. Clay told them it's normal operation noise for a high-voltage unit. I shook my head. It's arcing internally. The insulation oil is breaking down. It's creating gas bubbles. It's a bomb, Rex. I know, Rex whispered. I tried to tell Shane. He told me if I mentioned the transformer one more time, I could join you on the unemployment line. Rex pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket and slid it across the sticky table. I shouldn't have this, but you told me to document everything. I unfolded it. It was a photocopy of a work order signed by Shane. It authorized the rental of a massive diesel generator, a backup unit capable of powering the whole plant. But the delivery date was set for after the grand opening. He knows, I realized. He knows the grid is unstable. He's trying to limp it across the finish line for the client inspection, get his final payment released, and then swap to generator power if it fails later. He's going to claim it was a post-handover equipment failure. There's more, Rex said. He fired the third-party inspectors, said we're doing internal verification now. Clay is signing off on the safety sheets. My stomach turned. Clay signing off on high-voltage safety checks was like a toddler signing off on a nuclear launch. Get your guys out of the blast zone, Rex. I warned him. When they power up the new furnace for the full load test, be somewhere else. Be in the bathroom. Be in the truck. Just don't be near that substation. 3 days later, the first flicker happened. It wasn't a total blackout. It was a warning shot. I was sitting in Vance's office reviewing the defamation lawsuit we were preparing when my phone lit up with a text from Rex. Lights just dipped. Huge boom from the subyard. Clay is running around screaming. I showed the text to Vance. He didn't look up from his legal pad. Is the power out? Vance asked. Not yet, I said, interpreting the next text. Breaker held, but they just took a massive voltage spike. Probably fried every computer not on a UPS. Vance nodded. It's starting. Shane is going to panic. He'll try to patch it. Back at the site, chaos was unfolding. According to Rex, the surge had tripped the main drives for the ventilation system. The factory floor was filling with smoke from the welding stations. Mr. Tanaka's representatives were on site for a preliminary walkthrough, and the lights in the conference room had flickered and dimmed right in the middle of Shane's presentation. Shane, true to form, had lied. He told the reps it was a utility-side fluctuation, blaming the city's power grid instead of his own failing equipment. He sent Clay out to reset the breakers, a dangerous and stupid move on a live fault. Miraculously, the breaker held when Clay slammed it back in. The lights came back on. The ventilation roared to life. Shane wiped the sweat from his forehead and smiled at the clients. See, just a glitch in the city feed. Our system is robust. He was lying to the people writing his checks. He was lying to the people whose lives were at risk. That evening, I received a voicemail. It was from a blocked number. Wade, look, it's Shane. His voice was tight, stressed. I know we left things poorly. I need you to come in for a consult. Just a one-day thing. We have a minor calibration issue. I'll pay your day rate. Call me. I played the message for Vance. He sounds desperate, I said. He is. Vance agreed. Don't call him back. But the safety, Wade, Vance said sharply. If you go back now, you validate his negligence, and you become liable again. If you touch that equipment and it blows up tomorrow, he will blame you. He will say he brought you in to fix it, and you failed. Stay away, let the rot show. I knew Vance was right legally, but morally it was hard to sit on my hands while my former crew walked on a minefield. I won't call him, I agreed, but if Rex calls and says it's critical, I'm telling him to evacuate. The end came on a Friday afternoon, exactly as I had predicted. The Tanaka factory was conducting its first full load test of the new induction furnaces. This was the moment of truth, drawing maximum amperage to melt 10 tons of steel alloy. It was 200 in the afternoon. The sun was high. I was in my garden pruning roses, trying to keep my mind off the inevitable. My phone didn't ring. It didn't buzz. It simply lit up with a news alert from the local station app. Breaking, explosion at Tanaka manufacturing plant. Smoke visible for miles. My heart stopped. I dropped the shears and ran inside, turning on the TV. The news helicopter footage showed the substation. It was a crater. The transformer I had warned them about was a blackened, twisted wreck, still spewing thick black smoke. The containment wall was breached. An oil fire was spreading across the gravel lot. The factory itself was dark, dead. No lights, no ventilation, no hum of industry. Just a silent, hulking monolith in the smoke. I grabbed my phone and dialed Rex. It went straight to voicemail. I dialed again. Voicemail. Panic, cold and sharp, seized my chest. If Rex had been near that bushing, my phone rang in my hand. It was Rex. I'm okay, he coughed. I'm okay, Wade. We're all okay. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Where were you? I listened to you, Rex said, his voice shaking. When they started the ramp-up sequence, I took the whole crew to the far side of the warehouse for a safety briefing. Shane was screaming at me on the radio to get back to work. Then boom. It felt like an earthquake. Wade, the door to the electrical room blew off its hinges. Is anyone hurt, Clay? Rex said grimly. He was in the control room. Shattered glass. He's cut up pretty bad, but he's alive. The paramedics are loading him now. And the factory dead, Rex said. Total loss of power. The molten metal in the furnaces is cooling. Wade, they can't dump it because the tilt mechanisms are electric. It's going to solidify inside the vessels. The whole production line is bricked. I closed my eyes. Millions of dollars in equipment ruined in hours. An $18 million contract up in smoke. All because Shane didn't want to spend 35 grand on a shutdown. Shane is pacing around the parking lot throwing up, Rex added. He looks like a ghost. Within 48 hours, the finger-pointing began, but Mr. Tanaka wasn't interested in excuses. His forensic engineers found everything. The bypassed relays, the uncertified workers, and most damaging of all, Shane's billing records showing he charged for certified specialists while using temp labor at minimum wage. The insurance company denied the claim immediately, citing willful misconduct. Shane was personally liable for $28 million in damages and cleanup costs. OSHA opened a criminal investigation. The EPA got involved because of the oil spill. Vance had been right about the vindication. When Mr. Tanaka's team reviewed the maintenance logs, they found my thermal imaging reports and safety permit requests. They found Rex's documented emails about the bypassed relays. They found everything. Mr. Tanaka called me personally. Mr. Morrison, he said, in his calm, measured voice. My engineers tell me you tried to prevent this disaster. They also tell me you are the only person in the region qualified to rebuild this facility safely. I'm terminating Mr. Coleman's contract. I would like to offer you a 5-year exclusive maintenance contract as an independent consultant. I accepted, but not as an employee. As the CEO of Morrison Electric Consulting, Rex became my operations manager. Clay, after getting out of the hospital, came to me wanting to learn the right way. I gave him a hard hat and told him to watch and listen. He hasn't made the same mistake twice. Shane Coleman was arrested 3 months later on charges of fraud and criminal negligence. His company went bankrupt. His fancy SUV was repossessed. Last I heard, he was selling insurance in a strip mall 2 counties over. Now I sit on my porch, sipping iced tea and watching the sunset over the rebuilt factory. The lights burn bright and steady. The transformers hum their content song. Everything runs exactly as it should. I spent 28 years thinking that if I just kept my head down and did my job, the world would treat me fair. I was wrong. The world is full of Shanes, people who see safety as a cost and expertise as an expense. My mistake wasn't standing up to him. My mistake was waiting so long to realize my own value. Here's what I learned. Documentation is your shield. Safety is not a negotiation. And know your worth. Shane called me a cheap Sparky. He found out the hard way that you pay for quality once, or you pay for failure forever. Don't let anyone convince you that your decades of hard-earned knowledge can be replaced by someone cheaper who doesn't understand the consequences. When lives and millions of dollars are on the line, experience isn't just valuable, it's irreplaceable. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's proving that the person who underestimated you just made the most expensive mistake of their career while you rise to become everything they never thought you could be.